Live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Go ahead and welcome our guest today, Mr. John Trudell. Hello, John. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. And for our listeners, I know we spoke before the show. How are you doing today, sir?
Good enough.
Good enough. That's
good enough works for me, yeah.
I think we should all be so lucky to have good enough. Anyway, before we started the show, we were talking about a couple of different topics and whatnot, but I think the first one that I'm hoping it's okay to ask you a little bit about is the theme and the essence of your movie Thunderheart. It is brought to my attention by Dr. Jeanine that
anime Pictou Aquash was a woman that was murdered 35 years ago, and a man was recently convicted of felony murder just like a couple of days ago. So I just was wondering what Mr. Trudell, what his reactions to that were.
Well, this is one of them. Okay. It's kind of like a layered, complicated situation.
I know. But, yes.
But when she was killed, what I think happened is, I think during the days, those AIM days, I think that when AIM was very active, this was in 73, 72, the BIA takeover, the summer of 72, all of these things that were going on, and AIM was very active and having a lot of momentum. I think that the U.S. government sent an operative into the American Indian movement. And an operative is different than an informant or a snitch. An operative is someone who is sent to do a job. An informant or a snitch is someone that gets in trouble, and then the government makes a deal, and then you turn into an informant. Anyway, I think that the government sent this operative, and this operative was, once this operative arrived into the American Indian movement, let the violence start to change, started to turn into serious violence. And so anyway, we had the shootout at the FBI, between the FBI agents and the AIM people in 75, in summer of 75, and the agents were killed. And then later that year, Annie Mae was taken and picked up under the accusation of being an informant, the rumor of being an informant, and she was taken into South Dakota and murdered. Yeah. And anyway, the way to convictions, two men have been convicted of her killing now, Arlo Lichtencloud and John Grant. Mm-hmm. But my opinion is that these were not men they were boys. They were 20 years old. They weren't decision makers. They didn't make any decisions. They couldn't. Nobody's going to listen to the decisions that they made. Knowing the names of all of the people involved in this, none of them were decision makers. So someone gave, and they took her to a place on the Rosebud Reservation. When they had kidnapped her, they took her to Rapid City, and they took her to a place at a house on the Rosebud Reservation, and then from there they took her out and shot her. So whoever was in that house, the orders were given by someone that was in that house. So the convictions that they have now, I mean, it's in a way, these people should pay for what they have done, but in the way, if they don't go after the higher-ups, then they're using these two convictions as a cover-up for a larger went on. Yes, so we will see how it turns out.
Interesting. What do you think, John, about the American Indian movement, AIM? What do you think we can learn today? What can we learn from that movement that we can apply today to today's truth movements?
Well,
What should we not do? That would be a good question.
What do you know now that you wish you would have known then, kind of a thing?
Well, I'm going to take it on. This isn't just, I'm going to say this about all movements, not just AIM. I mean, all movements, whether they're environmental movements or what, all movements. All right? Now, I think that movements make too many emotional decisions. I think that because emotions run high when things are going, whether you're an environmentalist or a militant Indian, right? When you see this thing that you're opposed to, emotions start to get stimulated and they start running high. And I don't think we should make emotional decisions. I think that because when we make emotional decisions, we're not thinking clearly and coherently. I don't know anyone that using the power of their intelligence clearly and coherently when they're making emotional decisions.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think, all right, that that's crucial, is to not make emotional decisions. And
my mom says you can't learn to swim when you're drowning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And using the power of our intelligence with some clarity and some coherency. But we cannot use that power of clarity and coherency when we're emotionally reacting. And to me, that's one of the things that I would say is a very important thing. And I think that, and then we get into certain basics. I mean, it's like, I think that there has to be some kind of examination or discussion about how we're using our energy, because, all the basic reality is that, okay, I came into all of this in the 60s. I surfaced in the 60s because of my age and stuff. And I look back at that, and, our intentions were good. Our ideals were good. Our motives were good. We brought good against what we perceived to be not good. But here it is now, 40 years later, all right, and what we perceived to not be good is even worse than it was when we brought our good. So what's missing here? And if you look at the generation before and the generation before and the generation before, this seems to be a thing that just continues. We have movements, we protest, we do whatever this and that is, but the next generation is dealing with a bigger beast than we were.
Yeah.
And I think this really needs to be looked at. This is what I'm saying about making emotional decisions. We get emotionally involved, and we're not seeing something, a larger pattern around us. And,
Go ahead.
Pardon?
I was just going to say, how do you think that people can shift out of their emotional reactions and get into sort of a proactive use their power of their intelligence in a proactive kind of a way? How can they shift that?
Well, I think we have to understand that we've been imprinted to perceive reality from a distorted perception. We've been imprinted from birth to perceive reality based upon the negativity of how we perceive ourselves. And so it distorts. We've been programmed to believe reality. We've not been taught to recognize reality. And it's like, so I think it goes back to understanding the power of our. See, one thing is like, whoever we are is the good guys. Whether we're environmentalists or we're chasing spirituality, whatever it is we're all about. I don't see how we can show respect to what it is we say we respect if we don't respect our intelligence. It's like, how can you pray to a creator and say, thank you for giving me life? But if we don't say thank you for my intelligence, too, we're missing something. Because as human beings, we were given this power. This is how we generate our power, is through our intelligence. We manifest it through our intelligence as long as we're human form. In human form. We're human beings being in human form. And so I think that we're not really, we need to really understand the power of our intelligence. And so anyway, one of the things about it is we've been imprinted basically from birth to believe, not to think.
Yeah.
And the imprinting is so deep that we believe believing is thinking, but it's not. Because they don't want us thinking. right? Because it's like, and because everything is about energy, you know, it's all electrical. Everything's about energy.
Yes.
And when we think, we project electromagnetic thought. This means we're sending energy that's flowing into just flowing. Now, when we take that energy of thinking, that flowing energy, the electromagnetic thought, that flowing energy, and we change it to believing, but then basically we're taking that energy and we're putting it in a container. Because all belief, all right, has its prejudices and its biases. So we're taking this power, the flowing electromagnetic energy, and putting it in this container. But because it is energy, it has to intensify. So as it intensifies in our little mental containers, then it creates these stresses. And these stresses immediately are based upon the negatives of how we've been imprinted to perceive ourselves. So it distorts our energy. Am I making sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I get lost sometimes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
So it's almost like we have to have some type of a philosophical understanding with reality. You know, because the power of our intelligence is it's like, to me, we're being mined. You know, because everything is electrical and everything's about energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like that industrial ruling class that's here, right? It's like they're mining our energy.
Yeah.
Like they're just the same way that they're mining the uranium out of the earth, and they're mining the fossil fuel, and, you know, they're mining the gold, and, you know, and it's like they're mining the being part of humans through how they imprint us to perceive reality. And I think, you know, we have to think about these things if we're really going to have any real kind of change in what's going on. You know, all the movement emphasis, all of it's based upon participating in the system by the rules, that the way the system says is the legitimate way to participate.
Mm-hmm.
All right? And even violent civil disobedience is a legitimate way to participate, the way the system is structured. You know, or nonviolent. It doesn't matter, because it's designed to absorb all of those things, whether it's violent or nonviolent, civil disobedience. Anyway, civil disobedience since Gandhi, civil disobedience has been the thing that's been put in the consciousness. This is the way to go. But I think we need to go further than that, and I think we need to start looking in terms of cooperation and non-cooperation, because it's all about energy. They've imprinted us to believe their perception of reality. So every time we do something that way, we're cooperating with them. And so we need to examine cooperation versus non-cooperation, because, see, to me, non-cooperation means we don't give them our energy.
Mm-hmm.
What we're doing is giving them our energy, then we're cooperating with them, because they use that energy to care. If it's the energy of hate, fear, well, it's all fear-based, actually. But it's energy.
Yeah.
And it makes her run. So it becomes a matter of examining the concepts of non-cooperation. You know, it can go from anything like, let's say for the environment, to protect this environment. If someone was set out to organize people to not spend any money on an agreed upon, we will not spend any money on this agreed upon day, and if that happened, then it would have an impact, because we're not cooperating with them, especially the way the economy is now after all. But then they would feel that.
Yeah.
And they would have to deal with it. Or non-cooperation can go all the way to get to the other part of it is, hey, I'm just not going to have this low self-esteem stuff. I'm not behind pride. These things that we keep beating ourselves up with, see, they put it there so we would beat ourselves up.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't think that stuff up. Somebody put it in us and we believe it. Again, the difference between believing and thinking. See, all the fears that people, all of the fears that people carry in their perception of self, and then this negativity helps to it's how reality gets perceived. All of that stuff was put, and then we believe it, but we didn't think it up. So anyway, it's like non-cooperation to us just recognizing that there's nothing wrong with us, and let's participate now. Let's bring some clarity to this. That would be non-cooperation.
Right. Would a good, and I know that our listeners know that we promote, getting rid of your television, so to speak. Is ignoring media one way of non-cooperation in your eyes?
And voting as well. I wanted to.
Oh yeah, and elections.
And voting, yeah, elections.
Well, part of it. Maybe one of the ultimate acts of non-cooperation is to figure out the difference between thinking and believing, and then don't believe them anymore. You can't ignore the political system or the media because it's here, and it would be foolish to pretend that it's not because it's very dangerous. So the deal is dealing with them, whether it's the political system, the economic system, the media thing. And dealing with it, to me, it's like we deal with it and we recognize that it's a tool that can bite us or help us. But we have to figure out the difference on how to use these things or not, and how much we're going to use them. But, like the political system, I can see for voting and things, I can see at some levels, go ahead and vote. But I can see on other levels, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters at the presidential level. I don't think it matters who you vote for.
No.
I think presidents are predetermined. They already know who the next president is.
Exactly.
That's been decided, yes.
Actually, that's a good segue to take the conversation into the next level. Do you have the inkling that there is a master race or an elitist class that is pulling the strings as far as presidents around the world are concerned?
I think that there's an industrial ruling. Remember, our energy is being mined. There's an industrial ruling class on this planet. Maybe they're 0.5% or 1% of the population. Maybe they're 2% of the population. There's an industrial ruling class on this planet. And out of that industrial ruling class have emerged religions and governments. And religions and governments and economic systems, these are just like corrals. So they create these corrals, and they paint each corral differently under a different form of nationalism. And then they herd all the human beings into these corrals, and they tell the human being, your corral is better than any of the other corrals. Yeah, I think it's deliberate. And then they feed off of us.
Yeah, energetically.
In terms of energy, and that's what it's all about.
Energetic vampirism, yeah.
Yep.
And it's To get into the loopy aspect of this particular, and I mean that quote unquote, is it fair to say that perhaps these are malevolent beings behind the people that are doing this?
Define malevolent to me.
Malevolent meaning like somebody who literally is doing this on purpose, perhaps maybe a transdimensional being or an extraterrestrial being or something that is working nonstop to create a prison within the mind of humanity.
No, it's obvious that this is deliberate. It's a mining process. It's the same way they put cyanide in to leach out gold. It's a mining process. Yes, it's very deliberate. It's an energy thing. Now, it's about living off of the energy of this planet. In some ways, it's almost to me like, in some ways, it is kind of like, it's an alien energy because it devours everything that is earth energy, from the human beings to the plants, to the mineral, to everything. So, I don't rule anything out.
Yeah. It's funny because I think about, I always try to contemplate, we always talk about cutting off the head of the snake, and who is the head or what is the head of the snake? And we look at our world today, especially what's being perpetuated in the media, and it seems that it's almost like they're following a guidebook on the Brave New World or 1984, where war is peace and peace is war and good is bad and bad is good. And anyone with critical thinking would have the ability to see that it's just being imposed upon us, that it's ridiculous, really, in its definition of peace. But, that makes me think that it cannot be, I don't want to say it can't be human, but it's fair to say that it is very alien to the normal human heart and the heart of compassion and understanding when they rape the earth, when they keep spouting pollution and whatnot.
Well, there's some things here. It's like, and it could have fallen out of the earth, too. I mean, and I'll say that for this reason. When you're at the human brain, the very first cortex or whatever it is, the very first part of the human brain is reptilian.
Yeah, that's right.
And then it's mammalian. And then it's primate. See, so maybe the way this system works, we're imprinted, but we are being mined by someone, all right? But the way this system works is that when we're born, we're imprinted to perceive reality from an industrial perceptual reality and an industrial religious perceptual reality. When we're first born, we're imprinted with that. And then we've got these three levels of brains: reptilian, mammal, and primate. And so I think the way that the imprinting is, different levels of the brain are activated. So with all this imprinting that goes on, because reptilian represents cold-blooded to me.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not talking about scaly skin. I'm talking about cold-blooded.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
All right? And so as we grow up from little ones into what are called adults, as we grow up into these forms, the humans that the reptilian brain gets activated in, that's the one that becomes the dominant part of the brain thinking perception process. Then these are the ones now that start to become the new predators. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, absolutely. We speak of, or we hear of the reptilian agenda from people like David Icke and whatnot, and I don't know how much reality is in that, but symbolically.
He has people changing into lizards and stuff. See, and I don't think that's what it is.
Right. But he has it.
I think reptilian is about cold-blooded.
Yeah, exactly. And it may be just a part of our, like you said, it might just be part of our human makeup, and it's just a matter of people in power that haven't been involved.
Yeah, see, and now we link it up, so that's in there. Now, whoever originally thought up this stuff, I don't know. I'm open. That could have either come from here or it came from somewhere else. And I'm very open to that. That it's like, like maybe there was this disease. Maybe there was this disease energy floating around in the cosmos. And it landed here on the earth. And the only place it could live was in the minds of the human beings. I mean, so then, it arrived here at some point, all right? In whatever shape or form, and it got into the minds of the human beings because it's an energy form. And then the humans became its hosts, and then with every generation, they pass it on. It's like, am I making?
Yeah, actually, it's making sense in the sense that we do have, publicly, we all know of the secret societies that are involved. We all know about the Skull and Bone Society and how they bring in people of like mind and definitely people of like blood. And we do know that the elites are very much intermingled blood-wise. So there seems to be this... I don't want to say an agenda, but this like leaning toward keeping their race pure, which seems to be a malevolent, unhealthy way of being in power. It's not a compassionate way. So it seems like they have this agenda of keeping the most cold-blooded within their ranks and letting them loose to run the world.
Well, they reproduce the most cold-blooded. But and within their race, because see, it's a mental disease. It's something that moves through the mind. Because if their race is by a bloodline and not a color, because there's every color has this predator.
Sure. Yes.
So when you say race, you're implying something. So But it's something that lives in the minds of the human beings. I think it's beyond race.
Right. I was actually meaning a hybrid race of humanity with something otherworldly, perhaps.
I get that, but I'm saying that maybe race isn't the right word.
Yeah, species.
Yeah, species. There you go. I think that's more of it. A species, because everything on the planet is a species of something.
Now, I know that. Let me just chime in here a little bit about some of the things that we've been aware of that they quote unquote the industrial people,
ruling class.
Yeah,
ruling class. I think that's who they are. That's not capitalist, communist, any of that.
Yeah, no. We all know that socialism and all that are just, like you said, they're corrals to put people into different opposite groups, so to speak, so they can fight with each other, and that's been pretty much proven. But as far as let's say the idea of destroying the environment, or another example is this whole chemtrail thing, that they're spraying Corexit all over the place, and God knows what else they're spraying all over the rest of the countries. Now, in the Gulf, we see that, they have an excuse to do this. But it's been shown throughout the world that they are literally spraying these chemicals all over the world. It's in our foods, it's in our water, it's in our land, and whatnot. Have you contemplated or thought about why would they be poisoning the people or the planet? Is this to make more money, or is this something that perhaps that's what cold-blooded people need to survive? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Let's look at it as their environmental protection program for them, all right? So they spray all these chemicals, and they do all of this, and they create all these poisons. The planet's overpopulated. So for them, in practical terms, they could afford to lose a couple billion people. And that's just practical reality. So they don't, and in the process of doing it, make a lot of money. And they know what they're doing in that level. Right? And because when you look at dwindling resources, eliminate some of the population, then they have more access to the dwindling resources. And the fact that they're poisoning the environment, what I can't quite figure out, they're poisoning the environment, so it seems as though they would be affected by it too. But they may be so far disconnected from reality, they don't understand that.
Absolutely. What is their reality?
because I think a part of the deal is for us as beings, once we become spiritually disconnected from reality, and they use religion to spiritually disconnect us, and some of these people, I think, have just become completely spiritually disconnected from reality, and they just don't get it anymore.
John, I love your quote, protect your spirit, because we're in a place where spirits get eaten. I love that quote. You're making me think of that, yes.
But see, that's what I'm saying. They're mining. Right? They're eating our energy, yes.
I wonder if we could talk a little bit about hemp, because I know you're involved in the hemp movement.
Yeah, well, okay, here's the thing. If people would go to the website, hempsteadprojectheart.com, hempsteadprojectheart.com.
We'll post that on the website so everybody can have it, yes.
Yeah, that would be great. And anyway, so hempsteadprojectheart.com, and it's a website where we're explaining our attitudes about hemp. And we're talking about hemp separate from medical marijuana. We're talking about hemp itself. Because it's our opinion that the whole when they outlawed marijuana way back, whenever they did the outlawing, when they outlawed marijuana, it wasn't really the marijuana they were after. They were after the hemp.
Yeah.
And they used the marijuana, all right, and the fear and sensationalism tactics, and they got hemp outlawed through marijuana. And when we look at hemp, so Project Heart HEART stands for Hemp Energy Alternative Resource Technologies. So that's what the HEART stands for, out of the Project HEART. And we want people to start finding out about the realities of hemp in relationship to what's going on now. It's an alternative energy source. You know, we hear the political sloganeering and stuff about green economies and alternative energy and alternative green economies and things like that. Well, hemp fits that category.
Yep.
It fits it perfectly. And hemp can basically be used everywhere that you can use things from the petrochemical and from the forest. That's why it was outlawed back in the early 1900s, because it was competitive. Randolph Hearst owned a bunch of forest. Hemp made better paper, but only, and the way it worked, the way it happened was only a few people could own the oil. Only a few people could own the forest. But every man could own the hemp, so to speak.
Right.
And so this all fell into place this way. But we would like for people to go and examine the realities, you know, because especially environmentalists. You know, because one of my issues with the environmentalists, and a lot of things that go on, but one of my issues is I think that what we do, we need to do it because it's caring-based. We care for the earth. We care. But too much of what's going on now is being done because it's fear-based. And because it's fear-based, emotional reactions and decisions get made. And anyway, I just need to throw that out there, right?
That makes sense.
So we want people to look at this, pursue the information about hemp, educate themselves about the realities of hemp, and then make their own decision as to whether this makes sense to them. Now that's our objective. It's not a website that we interact. It's there, and we leave links to a lot of other websites. So it's just there with our explanations of who we are, we call ourselves the Olders because while we're old enough to be Olders, we haven't smartened up enough to be Elders.
That's good. I like that one.
The Olders leave us a lot of wiggle room.
Bernard and I can join that. We can go along with that. Yeah, we're Olders too.
There's certain things Elders can't do that Olders, if they were older.
Exactly.
Attitude-wise, right? But anyway, we're the Olders, okay? And anyway, but we're working with what we call the Youngers, all right? So this is an Olders and the Youngers trying to draw attention to hemp in relationship to the green economy, and because one of the things that I look at, and I look at the marijuana people to this one, in a way, is that they fought this battle to get medical marijuana because it's medicine for them. Now I think it's time for them to put that energy into getting this medicine for the earth, which is hemp, because it doesn't harm the soil. You don't need chemicals. You don't need pesticides. And if we want new oxygen for the air on an annual basis, you can have this crop. It makes oxygen for the air, right? And then you can renew it, and so it's healthy all the way around. And we would really like the medical marijuana people to consider what we're saying about medicine and the earth now. And anyway, I wanted to throw that out there too. So anyway, this is, and what we have planned. We don't have. All we have right now is just and probably would be in the LA area, but we're going to do a show. A Project HEART show for hemp awareness at some point here in the maybe by spring if things work well, with Willie Nelson and the Nelson family. So we're going to do this show, a family show.
All right.
I think it's great. And it'll be Willie and his son Lucas Nelson with his band, The Promise of the Real. His son Micah and his band, the Reflecticals, and his daughter Paula Nelson Band, and Amy, his daughter Amy, Nelson and Kathy Guthrie, who go as Folk Uke. So we're gonna, so we have that in the making.
That's wonderful. You know,
That's part of all.
I think the point that I'm getting from this is that we want to kind of circumvent all the programming that we've been given in the last 70, 80 years about marijuana and hemp and whatnot, and get to the real idea of what it is, what it's made out of, what it can do for not only for farming, for the earth, for healing, for all these other things. But I like the fact, I'm very grateful that you're calling it a family event, because people think it's so taboo to involve children in the discussion, whereas the earth and energy is something for the next generation. So that's a wonderful perspective.
In reality, an interesting thing on it is that you can't go, if you grow hemp next to marijuana, that will dilute the marijuana. So people aren't going to be hiding marijuana in hemp fields.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. And up until the mid-1880s, around once they had really found the oil and stuff, but up until around the mid-1880s, hemp was the largest cultivated plant on the planet. It was the largest cultivated crop in the world.
Wow.
All right, and then everybody used it. The flag was made out of hemp material.
Yeah.
The Constitution, hemp material. It was mandatory to grow hemp. Hemp was used as currency. People could pay their taxes with hemp. This is all a part of American history with hemp. So at one point there, for everybody, it was mandatory because they needed it, because especially when they had problems getting the hemp from the Philippines. So this is, so it's got absolutely nothing to do with marijuana. It's the difference between, sweet corn and field corn. They're two different corns. These are two different realities. But so we want people to consider what we're talking about. In my own mind, this is just my own personal attitude. My personal attitude, but if people are talking about jobs, if people are talking about the environment, if they're talking about energy, hemp falls into that. And we're not asking people, if people are for solar energy, we're not asking them to not be for solar energy or wind energy. We're not asking them to not be for anything. What we're asking them to do is, hey, let's get this one, because we can do it. It can be done.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see which way it goes.
I can't help but notice and think about all the new legislation that's being passed. We're now seeing what was it, the House Bill 501S or something like that, where they're literally legislating people from growing organics, growing their own farms. They need to have a license now for fishing in the ocean, which is very funny considering they just poisoned it. But it just seems like the legislation seems to be clamping down on all the things that you're speaking of and that we promote as an empowering generation. What are your I don't know if I don't want to say forecast, but how do you see this all coming to a head? Because eventually the laws are going to become so restrictive, which they already are, but they are getting worse and worse and worse. And I really don't see much of a pushback with the masses, except for the handful of activists and whatnot that we have here and there around the world. What are your ideas and what are your notions on this restrictive governance of organic growing? And because it does go against the whole hemp movement and whatnot. Do you think that? Do you feel that people will start cultivating in other countries, or do you feel that eventually maybe we'll get a person empowered to lift these laws, or will we just have people just not care?
Well, I don't know if we're going to get anybody in place to lift these laws, and I don't think that it's that people won't care, but I do think they're taking us back to the Dark Ages. but now we have electric and neon. And then when you look at the Dark Ages, you had the landlords and the peasants and the serfs, and you had the church, and you had the royalty. And nobody else had any rights, and everybody else was just a commodity. And all their lives were very rigidly controlled and structured. I think we're going back to that. That's where I think it's headed. And the way things are going now, I don't really see it changing by the way people are participating in it. Because even when you have these pockets of awareness, they're being absorbed by these pockets of unawareness. So when I look at that, and now this, it makes me think, remember, everything is about energy.
Yeah.
So I think we've been, see, one of the things, this goes where I go back to about thinking rather than believing, how thinking is our energy flowing. Well, anyway, everything's about energy. And we spent our lifetime trying to deal with these situations, but not approaching it from the perspective of energy. We've been approaching it from the perspective of our intellectual or our emotional attachments to the issues. But let's look at it as energy. And one of the things I find very interesting, from the 60s to now, in the 60s there was all this energy generated by the baby boomers that stimulated consciousness on a national scale about women's rights, about the environment. So the consciousness got stimulated, for Native people, for blacks, everything. It all happened with the war. All of that happened. So the energy got stimulated in such a way that it affected the consciousness. But since then, it's only happened twice. And both times that it happened from very minorities. And the two times, it was the medical marijuana people and the gays and lesbians. They were committed enough and had enough awareness and thought and clarity in using their intelligence to making their issues energy stimulators. They stimulated the energy enough that on the national level, they got change.
Yeah.
All right? And I think that that's what's necessary. It's about the energy. People are approaching it from the issues, and I think we have to look at it. We need to really seriously look at what kind of energy, how do we generate the energy? We have all that agree with it. How do we stimulate and generate that energy so that it has a larger effect? Because remember, it's all electromagnetic thought, this energy. So if we can find a way to stimulate our energy individually, collectively, then we're projecting more of this electromagnetic energy out there, which will draw more energy. I think sense.
Yes, absolutely. I completely understand that. And it really is all about energy. And I think that we seem to forget that, even the Buddha said, life is an illusion. Everything is your thoughts. And it's about your thoughts, how you react to them, and what energy you're putting out there.
But individually, it's important that we like ourselves. That doesn't mean we have to do everything we do, but it's important that we don't confuse the two things.
Right.
We like ourselves. We trust ourselves. We need to trust ourselves to think for ourselves. Independent of the fear.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, I'm sorry, Tony, you can go ahead.
No, because, see, there is no instant solution. I'm not looking for revolution, because revolution means you go back to the starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's all that it means, right? Which means oppressor oppressed. I'm looking at evolution. And we got into this situation. We were evolved into this situation. We can evolve ourselves out. It's a decision we make individually. Right? It's a decision we make. We can evolve ourselves out of this, and we can influence the rate of acceleration of this evolution. But it's a decision we make about thinking for ourselves, liking ourselves, and this, it's like, how much power do I have? All right. Have you ever had the situation where you felt powerless, and when you're feeling powerless, then how bad can you make yourself feel with all the fears, the doubts, and all that stuff? How does that affect the people you interact with? Well, see, if you've ever had that experience, then whatever's going on means you have power. Not an issue is not having power.
Right.
It's how But in that situation of feeling powerless, that's how one is focusing the intelligence. They're focusing their intelligence on that feeling of powerlessness and generating all this powerless power. So now let's say we took that same focus of our intelligence and used it coherently and used it clearly. We will generate power that will affect other people. See, this is the power. This is the power of the people. This is the only thing that they fear about us, is that we will use our intelligence clearly and think.
And go against all the programming.
That's right. See, the anecdote. Let's say that a disease-like energy infected the planet 6,000 years ago, whenever it was. It affected the planet. The planet had no immunity to it because it was a new energy. So through the millennium, it's been spreading. But see, the planet has now had enough time to develop the immunity, and the immunity is our consciousness. Right. Now, whether we will let it kick in or not is the real issue. See, we can't outfight them, but we can outthink them.
Absolutely.
This is why it's important to not make emotional decisions. We can't outfight anything. We can't even outfight ourselves.
That's true. You know, I would be doing an injustice to our listeners if I didn't ask just a comment on your feeling of this whole WikiLeaks situation. Is it real? Is it a show? What's going on? What do you think?
To me, it's all a show.
Yeah, well, it's all
everything that goes on is a show, and I watch the show. I find it interesting what's going on there, and what I find interesting, the thing I find the most interesting about it, though, really,
what's that?
Is that whether this guy is for real or not,
yeah,
I find that the public reaction to this is muted. It's written all about it. All these different people have got these opinions of the people that have taken a hard side, but generally speaking, the mass of the public, you hear nothing from them.
No.
And see, they're the ones that should be being outraged by this. So this is what I find interesting. Now, because you don't really, and to some degree it could be the media censoring that response, but then when you go look at Facebook and other places, you don't really see a lot about it.
No.
So I find that part. I watch it as a show. I'm not taking any sides on it. I'm watching it as a show, because it gives me a certain objectivity to recognize what's going on. Because, one of the things I would add to this, when I'm talking about energy and our intelligence, and the difference between thinking and believing, there's another thing about judgment. And I make a distinction between judging and recognizing. See, I think as human beings, one of the things that's because we've been imprinted to have this negative self-esteem stuff, that automatically means we've been imprinted with judgment because we've been judged. We believe the judgment, so now we become judgmental ourselves. And I think that time when that's got to be put away, because either we can it's our responsibility to recognize what's going on, and that means to recognize means you look at it. You look at it and you see it from every way you can see it, feel it, touch it, taste it, but you seek to recognize it for what it is. When we take sides and we judge, our ability to recognize gets put in that same container, because all judgments are like beliefs. They have their limitations and their biases and their prejudices. So when these things come along, on one level, I like what I do it, but I don't know. It's a show. And so let's see, when the show has played for a while, then I'll get a better understanding. First thing.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I feel that it's something to, there was just an article today in The Guardian out of the United Kingdom saying that it's being used to, to monopolize the attention of the masses, to create perhaps some kind of revolution that will then give the governments or whatever, the powers that be, the reason to shut down the internet, to create a police state, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a very fine line of is this going to be something positive or is it going to be something to create more of a clampdown?
I don't see them shutting down the Internet. I don't see it happening. They gave us the Internet so that they could monitor us. Remember, the military had the Internet for 20 years.
Oh, that's true.
So they gave it to us for, all right, and it's a way of keeping tabs on us.
Yeah.
I don't see them shutting down the Internet as a result of it. All right?
We're in big trouble, Dr. Bernard, you and I. We're in really big trouble.
But I can see them using it to set up mechanisms to control certain aspects of the Internet stuff. But, you know, and this whole rhetoric of setting up a police state. You know, the Guardian, people better get used to this. It's already been set up.
Yeah.
They're not setting one up. It's here. You know, when I was a kid going to school, I remember them telling me about the Soviets, the Russians, the USSR, and the Nazi secret police. They could come into your house whenever they wanted. They could yank you off the streets. They spy on you. They get their neighbors to spy on you. They keep files on you. And we were supposed to oppose that because it was bad. And now it's here.
It's here and it's celebrated by the masses, unfortunately.
So for people to say that they're setting one up, it has been set up. And the other thing, but it's not futuristic. It's the past. I'm telling you, it's medieval Europe, all right, being recreated. Because when you look at what's going on, because everything's about energy, so all energies have a pattern. So if you look at the energy patterns of industrial civilization, nothing has changed. They're not setting up something new. They just got new place to do it with. It's the same thing. It's the same oppressive system, you know, that they set up. I don't know who set it up.
What do they call it? Surfism or something to that effect? With the landlord, yeah, like you said, the landlords and all that.
Yeah, see, so the only thing that changes, the generations change, the technology changes, and the terminology changes. But the basic controlling predatory system of feeding off of the energy of a few, the same predatory system of a few feeding the energy of the larger mass has remained the same. See, this is the puzzle. This is the puzzle. That's why I say it's about energy, and we need to look at it that way.
And that's something that a lot of people don't want to take responsibility for, because then you're asking them to take responsibility for not only their actions but their emotional reaction, and that's not something anyone is taught to do.
I don't know if it's people don't want to take responsibility, but it's new. Nobody said these things to them. Because when you really look at it, see, I think when I look at the collective mass of people, I think it's all up for grabs yet. You know what they're waiting for? They're waiting for someone or some things, not even someone. They're waiting for something that makes sense. But we're not giving them, I mean, in the large run, we're giving them our emotional attachments and our emotional reactions. See, and in some ways they make sense, but they don't make the same kind of sense. So what people are being stuck with is they're being stuck with all these different partially made sense programs. But I'm saying if we just make sense,
yeah. And it's hard, you find that, like you said, a lot of these movements are out there, and they're very justified in their causes and whatnot, but we're not getting to the root of the problem, which is exactly what you've described today, is the whole energetic aspect of it. And to give something that makes sense to the masses on that level, it would be, first of all, it would be revolutionary. It would be wonderful to see something like that happen.
And I think that it can happen.
What would be something like that?
Our approach at it is like this hemp project.
Okay.
Project Heart. Yeah, we're going out here. We're going to make whatever sense we can make and see how people relate to it.
Right.
Because we're not trying to sell people to join us or any other thing. We're laying it out and saying, here, check out this information. Check out these facts. And if it makes sense to you, then we're asking that you do what you can.
Yeah.
We're not trying to get them to follow our way, any of that. It's just here. Let's just throw this out there. And I think that, I just think, well, let's just make as much sense as we possibly can.
And it's clearly not fear-based. It's clearly not fear-based like many of the other movements. Yeah, it's not reactionary. It's appealing to people's common sense.
Yeah, because common sense. See, we have certain things in common: the earth, the need to eat, the need to drink, and sense. We have common sense. Mm-hmm. So let's look for what we have in common as we approach this. It's not approach it from what we're afraid of. Let's approach it from what we care about and what we have in common.
I like that.
And that's
Can we
that's
take
beautiful.
a minute?
We got about 3 more minutes. Do we have a time? We have a short question?
I just wanted to let people know about John's poetry, his music. I was just saying before the show started that I'm a huge fan. And at all of my road trips, anytime I'm in the car, I've always got John's music playing. My kids know all the lyrics to all the songs. And he just released a CD, Crazier Than Hell, just a couple months ago, right, John? And if you haven't seen the movie Trudell, you've got to see the movie Trudell, of course. And I also just wanted to give a shout-out about John's poetry book that I just am in love with. It's Lines from a Mind, and that's also something I would just really recommend. But did you want to let people know about your most recent CD, John? What was the inspiration?
The Crazier Than Hell CD? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, me.
I am crazier than hell.
That inspired me. Well, let's tell everybody. And that's pretty much it. No, actually, Crazier Than Hell was a love song for someone, that I wrote for someone who passed on. I mean, the title song itself.
Yes.
But the whole concept of the album itself is, something is crazier than hell. What's going on is.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is. When you look at look at the situation we're in. So anyway, it's kind of just some abstract observation about it. Because when I write an album, to me, my albums are like my books. There's the title of the album, and then each song is like a chapter in this book of stories, so to speak.
And you've got a new CD coming out.
Yeah, the new one, we're recording it now. We've got all the tracks recorded, but we've got overdubbing and mixing and things to do and all of that. So the objective is to have it ready by spring.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Well, we'll definitely look forward to that. I definitely, I just want to let everybody know also that if you are on the GIC page on Blog Talk Radio, the album link is there if you'd like to purchase it. So, or if you'd like to learn more about it, it's all there for you to take a look at. John, I just want to thank you very, very much for spending this hour with us. As usual, every time I've ever seen a video or heard a recording of you speaking on these topics, it's always very interesting. It keeps me thinking, and if anything, I think it's given me some food for thought to think about, especially the whole idea of energetic reaction. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yes, thank you so much, John. It's been wonderful, and you were so generous and kind to do our little radio show. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. and to me, it's because I'm not trying to get people to believe me or not believe me or follow anything, but if anything I got to say gets people to think about something, then that's the objective.
Well, that's beautiful. We covered a lot of ground today, so there's something in this conversation, I think, for everyone.
We sure did.